If you're an AI agency owner and you are here in order to learn how to manage your schedule better, then you're at the right place. I have realized that there are two different ways to go about scheduling the week ahead. First of all, I realized that a lot of people find a lot of benefits in scheduling their week ahead. That is something that a lot of successful executives have in common, and it separates them from the not so successful solopreneurs. That they actually take time on the weekend and they look at their schedules, rather they look at their week as a performance, in the sense of like, every week we get better at what we do, because this is my skill set, this is my craft, that I get better at what I do every week. And for that reason, I am planning the week ahead on the weekend. I am closing the previous cycle and I'm opening a new cycle. And every day is a new chapter, every day is a grand opening to a new day in this beautiful life that we have the privilege to experience in the way that we do, in this dual way where there is good and bad, so we can tell the difference, and so that the good can be really good and the bad sometimes has to be really bad for us to be able to tell the difference. And so with that, we want to gravitate to the good in life. And how do we do that? We do that by productization. No, that was a joke. We do that by sticking to our schedules, because as we are AI agency owners and as we are riding the wave of abundance in the AI age, we will find that when we actually plan ahead, we can predict the actions that we need to take in order to get to our goals long term, and then reverse engineer what we need to be doing every week. Now, that is a skill set in itself. How do I get myself to doing what I actually know that I should be doing? How do I do that? How do I get myself to do the things that I know that I actually should be doing? And that's not such an easy answer. But here's my little more complicated answer for you. We want to take care of personal balance. It is my belief, I cannot substantiate that yet apart from experience and experiential knowledge, that empirical, that was the word that I was looking for, empirical evidence that I found it true for a lot of people to be that when we are not in balance, we have a hard time doing what we need to be doing, what we actually know that we should be doing. But why is that? How can that be that we know exactly what we need to be doing and we're still not doing that? In my opinion, that is because we are not in balance. And what brings us into balance? The positivity, belief, friends, and actions. That is my life success quadrant. And you can take it and utilize it, or disregard it and not utilize it. That's totally up to you. It is my offering to you. My offering based on 8 years of my own experience at deeply studying life and how life works. Basically the application of human psychology. I've studied the theory behind that also, although I didn't obtain a degree. I did go to university. But I was meaning to study that in life itself, how life works, and how we can utilize the workings of life in order to make our own lives work. How do we understand how life works so that we align how we work our lives so that our lives work out? Because if we do the things that work, eventually they will work for us also. If you work 20 years in finance, you probably are going to be financially set because you're learning the skill. If you work 20 years as a builder, you're probably capable with your hands. And you can create things from an idea into reality. If you work 20 years as a psychologist, as a teacher, a kindergarten teacher, a psychologist, a coach, you are probably going to get good with people. So with that, all we need to do is adjust our actions, because that's all that matters for life to change. Actions. But if it were so easy, everybody would do it. So here's the question then. Why don't most people? And the reason is because they feel compelled to do something else. Now, obviously, fear is a factor. And some people are afraid of what it would mean if they were to get the outcome, or how they would look like if they were to perform the actions to get to the outcome. Or, generally speaking, that they may not be good enough even though they would try everything that they could. These are psychological factors and phenomena that tend to hold people back. Now, as we are growing our agencies, there is the question, how do we get ourselves to do the things that we truly want to be doing here in this lifetime? How do we do that? How do we get ourselves to do the things that we truly want to be doing here in this lifetime? And so the answer towards that is action, taking the right actions in the right way, so that we understand and study how life works with the accurate understanding of how life works, so that we can adjust the way that we work our lives with how life works so that our lives work out. Right? If you study the laws of how an engine works, and you work them with the understanding of how it works, eventually you will get the engine working or not. That's the beauty of life. It's like you can do everything right and it may still not work. Sometimes a hailstorm comes and wipes out your crop, or somebody comes and wipes out you, and that's possible. And that's called the beautiful risk of living life outside of your four walls and even inside. There are things that can happen to you. And so you gotta be careful. As Jim Rohn said, gotta be careful. But you're also not a tree, you can move. And the book you don't read won't help. So with that, we want to study how life works so that we can adjust the way that we work our lives with how life works so that our life works out. And one of the key fundamental understandings to that is that life works in a certain way. Life changes primarily through action, but it's also the right kind of action in the right sequence with the right energy to it. And what does it mean? If you call a prospect, the quality of how you call makes a whole lot of difference, because you may not get the outcome that you want when you're in a bad place, in a bad state, when you're either tired, when you're fatigued, when you've eaten a whole lot of carbs before the call and you're tired, when you're poisoned by heavy metals, or your mind is poisoned by music that contains lyrics that don't belong in your vocabulary for the way that you would like to live your life, because these thoughts pull your thoughts in a direction that might not be the direction that would be conducive for you to achieve the goals that you want, at least that you say that you do. So, standing guard at the door of our minds. Always watch your coffee. That's what Jim Rohn also said to us. And so with that, how does life work? Action taking. That is how life ultimately changes, but not only taking action, blind action in a weird way, but also the right action in the right way. Taking the right action in the right kind of way. And how do we get ourselves to take the right action in the right kind of way? How do we get ourselves to do the things consistently and predictably that are changing the outcomes in our lives? So, I found that being in energetic balance is very, very important. And these are the three other components that I am outlining as my life success quadrant, which is basically the tool that I'm kind of using. And as I said, it's not something that I came up with. It's just other people have realized it too. There's some truth to that, in my opinion. You can verify that, whether that is true or not for you, whether you think that relates. Positivity, belief, friends, and actions. Positivity, because that changes the quality of our actions, and that also changes how much energy we have inside of us. And so, in the same way as when you feel fully charged, when you had a good night's sleep, you have more energy at your disposal as if you are not. And so positivity also gives you more energy. It is a net positive. You have more to draw from. Whereas negativity suppresses your energy and you have less of. Now, the challenge with that is, then you say, well, how do I be positive all day, every day, all the time, and be perfect at it, right? That's where the mind wants to go. How do we do that? And that is something that we need to unpack, and I'm attempting the absolute humanly, utterly best of explaining that. Positivity. What draws us to negativity? Well, one factor that draws us to negativity is healing. Like when we hold certain memories inside of us or certain situations that we haven't fully processed, oftentimes as we go through life, we tend to attract similar situations that are energetically similar or experientially similar. Kind of they trigger remembrance. They are semantically similar in the same way as you have ever been at like one kind of beach town and a certain smell came up of some food that you ate at this particular location, and then you go like at another beach town and it looks kind of similar with the architecture, and then you remember the smell because it's semantically linked, although the smell wasn't present in the second place. So with that, oftentimes as we're on our journey to life in life and making the experiences that we do, it aids the healing process that we energetically attract energetically resemblant experiences so that we get to relive the emotions that we would have originally felt in the situation, but we don't allow ourselves to feel these emotions. In order for us to let go of this experience and the associated behavior patterns, we want to make sure that we overcome that. And so that's why you can call it life is sending us these experiences. Or you can just say they stand out to us. You notice them more, you feel drawn to that. In the same way as when you go through life and you are drawn to what are things I can import and make money with. It's a very different frame than when you're thinking, well, who can I mate with? Like you see different things when you go through town, when you go through the city where you live, when that is your primary question, right? And so we notice people who are energetically similar to what we have experienced in the past as a healing means. Okay, so that can draw us into negativity when we haven't healed that fully. Okay. Negativity can also be what I call a relief or release pattern, meaning that it purges a certain type of stress in our body. Okay, so that was my Saturday evening.